25 of those 40 years you lived in Nigeria, and so far 15 years in Australia. So you're an Aussie now, full blown Aussie, right? What are uniqueness? What are the uniqueness of life in Nigeria versus life in Australia these 40 years? Spending some of your formative years in Nigeria, and then the second, if not more than the second half of your life in Australia. What are kind of the uniqueness between both worlds, and how have you merged both?
Well, thanks so much, and once again, happy birthday, Adela. Welcome to the fourth floor. Even it's just like 6 months. Yeah, I turned 40 in December, and it was my first ever birthday celebration. I had family and friends. My mom, my father is late now, and so it's great to celebrate it. And you deserve this, man. You've crammed in so many things in 4 decades. I salute you and I congratulate you on an amazing woman. Let's put our hands together again for her. Um, my own life has not been that adventurous. Um, yeah, well, 25 years, now I'm talking to, most people here at diaspora, and some of you have been here for as long as I've lived my life. So I don't think that it's any different in Australia. For those who have lived in Australia would know that, our systems are quite similar in the sense that this is still a Western country, it's a developed country. There may be a little bit different. There may be a few differences in a few things. Aussie is better though. Now America is our big brother, so we all love America. Yeah, so my experience in Nigeria wasn't very great, to be honest. So if you've heard my story before, you would understand that I lived in struggle streets from a very poor background, and so I didn't have a very good experience. And I really wanted to. I think when I was in fourth year medical school, I got an opportunity to travel to South Africa for an exchange program, which someone paid for, and I think that's the first time I traveled out of Nigeria. And that was when I realized, man, I want to leave. So it became very clear to me. So when I came back, I got another exchange program to UCL in London, Queen Square. I went there for 6 weeks. And I can't tell you, now I have a lot of stories, man. I can't bore you with that. Let me not go into the story of how I I left. I'll actually share it. It may help someone.
Yeah, the way you that pad,
Yeah,
that
no,
pad.
no. Well, not the jackpot, but the going to England. I went to a reception, wedding reception. Oh, have I said that before? No. Have I? I was in a wedding reception, and the man was the chairman of the reception, was a CEO of a big insurance company. And as I stood there, the store God told me that that man was going to finance my trip to England. And he stood up, went to the toilet, this mobile toilet, this blue, mobile toilets with two police officers. And I stood up to go to the toilet. And as he got into the end, he went in first, he came out, I approached him. And of course, I have been trained on the streets of Lagos, Yaba, Oshodi. I knew how to beg, I had scripts, I know how to make people, whether you're, if you're that kind of thing, if you're wearing a suit, I know. So I just approached him and said, hi, sir, I'm Neighbor, I'm family of my Christian, just in Lagos. I just, need your help to get to go to England. I've got an opportunity to study clinical neuroscience at UCL. I have 30 seconds. So there's something in our university we talk about a 3 minute thesis. All right, within 30 seconds, if you're making a presentation or meeting someone, you need to capture someone in 30 seconds. So about that 30 seconds, I knew exactly how to engage people within the first 30 seconds, and that was it for me. By Monday, I was in his office in Ikeja. First time I saw 100 US dollars. I didn't know people, Nigerians kept money. You enter to his office, brought out a safe and a bundle of 100 US dollar bills. Paid for my trip to England. So that was just me. I just landed in England. Unfortunately, by the time I spent all the money on ticket and everything, the little change that I had with my wife now, who was my fiance, she was financing my life at the time. Went to Yaba to buy shoes for me. It was Igbo made shoes. Sorry for the Igbos. By the time I got to Dolly, whatever, the shoe was like this. So my friends in London, I was dragging my feet and all that. It was very interesting story. But that's also, I got there, and the first time in my life I saw an MRI machine. I saw an MRI image at UCL. And I was like, no, I am leaving. I just need to break the cycle of poverty from my life. And so in 2008, I saw a documentary about Australia. And to cut the long story short, I just felt that I needed to take that step, and I took that bold step. Now, coming to Australia has been, I went by divine instruction. Australia was not where I had an admission to go back to UCL for a master's in clinical neuroscience. I didn't want to do the USMLE because I couldn't afford the USMLE exams. A lot of my friends were coming to the US. I couldn't afford it. So I was looking for scholarship. I remember going to Benin City. I remember traveling all around Nigeria looking for scholarships for this. I had an admission to KCL and UCL, and I just couldn't find the funding. So when I saw Australia, I just took all of my money, paid for the exams. The story is much more complicated than that, but I found myself in Australia, and of course, what I did was just to apply myself. Australia has been really good to me. It's been really good to me. And when you go by divine instruction, I almost did not make it somehow, but God opened up doors for me, and I was able to get in, became one of the, in fact, at the time I was the only black neurologist, and I think about two or three of us in Australia and New Zealand. So I'm also in neurology, which is a very wide profession. And so God has just helped me to thrive in that regard. So the unique differences for me is that I find that I am doing. There's nothing as good in this life but getting paid to do what you love to do. Medicine for me is not just a job; it's a calling. I'm already having withdrawal symptoms, not seeing patients for the last 1 week. I breathe it. Every day, I still open my medical software and I'm still looking at, even yesterday before I slept, I was still looking at pathology results and MRI results and, texting around the secretaries and saying, can you contact that patient, book an appointment? I just love it. So I don't see myself retiring from medicine. It's just something that I enjoy doing. So Australia's given me that platform. They value their doctors, they pay me well, they've broken the cycle of poverty from my family. I was able to bring all of my siblings to Australia, my mom, everything, And of course, I'm giving back to Nigeria because, of course, we got subsidized education in Nigeria, which is a shame that I knew I could have been a good asset there. So what we're doing is now trying to give back. So I think I've gone now 4 times or 3 or 4 times. Yes, last year in September, I went again for the third time to Abuja. A hospital in Abuja, we donated a $60,000 machine. All right. That's the last one anyway. That's my last time of doing it because they messed me up. 3 times I've been messed up. So I've learned my lesson now, giving back to Nigeria. Because they take all these very expensive machines. I traveled there with staff. I went with 2 staff and my wife to Abuja, brought this machine, set everything up, and I got there and I realized that it was a scam. When I mean scam now, it wasn't like a scam to me, but they're just not ready for all of these things. You know what I mean? It's just a mess. But hopefully we'll look for opportunities to be a blessing to Nigeria to give back. Sorry, it's a very long answer.
Let's celebrate that community. And that's why we need Mrs. Adela Fayol to bring out those stories of the scammers so I think, all things work together for good. Um, Mrs. Fayol, you were raised by missionary parents of great Christian values. Um, how was life for you as a young girl, as a young child? And is there any lessons to share with the children of clergy and clergy themselves from your upbringing by your parents? Or with your parents?
So this question has two parts, so God help me. How was my upbringing? I think the best thing that my parents did for me and my siblings was to expose us to both worlds. So they were missionaries when I was growing up, and what this meant was they would go to villages. They had 16 villages that they were um, overseeing in my local government area. And I'm talking about like rural villages. Some of them you will be on tarred road for more than an hour off the main road. Some of them it's even hard for any vehicle to get there. Some of them the vehicle will break down before you get there. It was that bad. And they didn't have electricity at all those villages. So making sure that we were part of what they were doing. Not that they forced us to, but I grew up going on mission trips with them. And sometimes I will go with the gospel team. So that means we'll take a big bus and go. When I go with the gospel team, we would normally spend the weekend. We will show Jesus movie in the evening. We would visit the sick in the daytime and so on and so forth. So for me, it was very normal to get somewhere and there's no bed. That what they have is mats for us to sleep on. It was very normal. It wasn't like, what are you happening here? You know how those Ajabota kids do. You're not Ajabota. You receive the mat with gratitude. You sleep on it. It was very normal to wake up very early to go to the river to fetch water to bathe before the day breaks so that you can bathe outside where they had those makeshift bathrooms. All that was very normal, and at the same time, I get home and there's water running at the tap. I had my own bed. I lacked nothing when I was growing up. When I was in secondary school that time, my dad would give me at least 500 naira every day for me to buy food. What was I going to buy? This was in the 90s, the early 90s and so on. I had I had enough. I had more than enough. I never lacked anything. But at the same time, I was exposed to, I knew not everybody had, all that they wanted. I could mix with people that had nothing, people that had something. When we go to those villages, you make friends, you interact with them, you know their struggles and so on. And so I think for me, what my parents did, the best thing they did for me was exposing me to both worlds. So nothing impresses me like nobody can entice me with money or with I'm a big man or like so what, whatever. So for that, it really helped me to be grounded. It really helped me to have a foundation. And the second aspect of your question, being a clergy's kid, I really appreciate my parents that they did not define our lives based on their own profession. So there's a lot of pressure on being a pastor's kid. I don't know if you guys are aware. You have to be a pastor's kid to actually know what I'm talking about. It's like everybody expects you to be perfect. You can't do anything, they'll be like, I'm a pastor. One on boy I will say, have you go? Like, you can't even breathe. I was so fed up when I was in school that time. Any little thing about pastor or pastor's child is like, can I at least lift my leg? Can I move? You can't wear pants. You can't. Like me. Meanwhile, my father had no problem with me wearing pants. He went to school here. He lived here. My mom lived here at some point with him and my two of my sisters. So they didn't have a problem, but outside there's a lot of pressure. But I'm glad that my parents never put a pressure on us being perfect because do you know who your father is? You know you are a pastor's child, so you need to behave. Because clergy people need to know that what that does is it drives children away from, they don't want to be, I'm not the pastor, you are the pastor. Why are you trying to make me be you? I'm not you, I will never be you. That thing is very detrimental to our emotional development because it's like, okay, there's this expectation. My parents were never like that. My dad my dad and I and my brother, he's number five, I'm number six, we ate in the same place for all my life until I left at the age of 19. Every night when we're having dinner or breakfast, whatever it is, me and my brother ate in my dad's plate. My dad will sit at the edge of the table. I'm here, my brother is there. We ate in the same plate. If we needed 3 rounds, we would get 3 rounds. But we ate in the same plate. And you know, when you eat with somebody, what happens? You talk. My dad had time, even though he was pastor, he was very busy. He had businesses and so on. I mean, he was a missionary. He was no longer on the church when I was born. He made time. We talked. So he didn't raise me. Not once did my father say, "See, you know you are a pastor's child. This is how you should dress. You know you are a pastor's child. This is how you should behave." And that thing helped me to discover who I am in Christ and live my life without the pressure of being expected to be perfect. So, I see intentionality, not just with you or from you, but it came from your foundation, and we must credit your parents with that and appreciate them. Thank God for your life. All right, but to me, this one is for you. Life was very challenging for you growing up because of the adverse financial and economic situations, and that strained the relationship with your parents. From your life's realities, what counsel do you have for married couples with difficult financial situations and children grow with parents that are struggling financially?
Wow, that's, it's hard to answer that question because I'm not in my parents' shoes. Sorry, I apologize. I'm a very emotional person. I'm a crier. Yeah, even when I watch skits on YouTube, I cry.
That's it.
So this question is making me emotional. Yeah, it is. Listen, as a parent, my own kids have everything. So I feel bad for my dad when, you know, he couldn't provide. Or I remember the Christmas morning we had where we had nothing to eat and my mom had to go out, hustle. My father was not around at the time. He had left to meet with another woman. And my mom went out for hours. She came back with like five or six unripe plantain. We boiled it that morning, green, starchy, acidic. We dip it in palm oil on Christmas Day. I could see the pain in her heart. You know what I mean? Like it's a very unpleasant feeling, and even though it wasn't me, so being a parent now, and I look at my kids, and I'm like, oh my God. One day, 2016, I flew the family. We flew down to Los Angeles. My 5-year-old or 6-year-old son then, how old was he then? 2016, 5-year-old. He had a first class trip. We were all in first class, not even business class. We flew first class Sydney to Los Angeles, and we had the most amazing holiday. And I looked at my son, my wife was beside me and said, this boy will never know what it means to wake up on a Christmas day. And it's not his fault. And I have to tell myself that with my son that, it's not his fault that he doesn't know what it means. Because sometimes people, I'm sure you feel the same thing that when kids have not struggled the way you struggle, you're like, you don't know what it means. That kind of thing. You have that, but they can't. They're not wired to. They don't know what it is. My son has not woken up one day to not know there's no food or no water or you understand, or no power. Like it's not, they cannot conceptualize it. So it's very hard as a parent now looking at my family and looking at the challenges they had. I think maybe the mistakes they made was that they didn't have Jesus at the time. And I think that really made a lot of caused a lot of problems for them, and they looked for alternative names, which just made it. I left them when I was 14, never been back home. I left when I was 14. I go to college 14 plus. I was very precautious. I finished high school at 14. And just before my 15th birthday, I got to Yaba College of Technology. I was the youngest when in computer science, in studying computer science. I started studying computer science before I switched over to medicine. I never went back home. All throughout my medical school, holidays, I stayed on campus because home was hurting. Now, up to today, I have my regrets because even though most of my siblings are with me in Sydney now, we're not very close. I see my wife, the way she interacts with all her siblings. I don't like if I call my sister now, we talk 10 minutes, the conversation dries. You know what I mean? That flow is not there, and I wish I could just. The other day, my sister, and I'm sharing this with when I came 2 months ago when we're doing the master class for those who were in my unit. I was moved to tears that my younger sister was staying with me at the time. She's now on her own, and she just we noticed something changed, and I went to her bedroom one day, and she had been suffering with depression living in my own house, and she was just crying, and I was moved because we 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 talked each day, but there was no depth to that. So I still miss that. What's the question again? So
No, I like the way that it's flowing naturally. But the question was, how do you advise and how would you counsel married couples? Well, you already gave a caveat like the
it's not your thing to do because you were not in your parents' shoes.
Let me give 2 points on that quickly. Would be that whatever situation you are in, all right, always communicate with your kids and find a way. So even if you're not able to provide, if things are difficult, I think that's probably what my parents did. I'm lucky and I really thank God for His grace that somehow God matured me quicker. So I was very, as I said, precocious. I matured very quickly. So by 15, 16, by 17, I was helping my mom at home. Throughout the time I was in medical school, I was working. There was a time where I was working as a fake doctor until God saved me one day. I'm serious. I am serious. I'm vulnerable enough to let you know that. I was on campus in medical school, but I was working as a doctor in Surulere, one of these different hospitals. Because they pay you per night, I would do night shift. Until one day a woman had a baby stillbirth, and she had lost the baby, but the placenta would not come out. And I was a 411 medical student. And I was in my white coat. They thought I was a doctor. And she was bleeding. I was with this woman, I'm telling you the truth, her life was in my hands. I had to call my dog senior registrar and say, sir, what are you doing? What are you doing? I said, sir, we'll talk about that one later. I had a retained placenta here. I'm serious. But I had to hustle. I had to hustle. Yes, I was doing computer analysis, data analysis in college because I did computer science. I'm still computer, so I did a lot of data analysis, statistical analysis. I was doing for all the master's students. I was analyzing the project, making money from that hustling. So my sister didn't see me. So I was a father in the house. I was paying all the bills, the outgoings in our house. And I was 17, 18. So I knew I was, so that matured me faster. But if there was anything that my parents should have probably done if I was in their shoes, because some of the challenges they had financially, it wasn't their fault. It's probably to, get God, communicate with your kids, and I'll finish on this point. I hated my father. I just hated my father. I had deep hatred for my father. That he walked away with my mom, no children, no job, with 5 children, and he didn't care. And I went to his office and he told me that I couldn't help him. So a member of my church paid for my 6 years of medical education. A member of the church paid for my school. And then when I wanted to graduate, he showed up to me to the University of Lagos. He came and I remember walking down. I was in final year then, and I told him, I said, I hate you. Told him, I said, I have nothing for you. I said, I know you tried for me growing up and you did a lot, but I said, no, there's nothing. But guess what? God helped me to heal and take away that hatred. When he died, I was an intern. My father died in November, 2 months before I left Australia. And the interesting thing is that every single cent, all the money I saved throughout my internship was spent on my father. When he came back into my life, in fact, it's like his presence even took away all my money. He didn't pay for my education, and then only 1 year that I worked. When he came back, my father came back broken. He came back damaged. He came back old, and my mom still, took him back. My mom, oh my God, it's a love I cannot understand. My mom took him back, nursed him, slept in the hospital, you know. I mean, she did all of that. And one day, a few weeks before he died, he looked at me and said, Me, I love you. And he was crying. And that was the first time. That's why every time I see my son, every day, my 2 boys, I hold them and I say, I love you, I love you. Never heard that from my father. And it broke me that day. I looked at him. And yeah, a few weeks later, he passed away. He was a good man at heart, though. He was a good man. In general, but he made a lot of wrong choices. And I'm determined not to make those wrong choices. It doesn't matter if you don't have money, you can still be there for your kids, you can still communicate, you can still love, and you can still support them no matter what. Sorry, very long answer.
No, very helpful. Yes, thank you. I like the way you were able to separate, who your father was and the choices that he made. Very often we kind of like tag people based on what they do. It's difficult for us to see beyond what they're doing and just say this person is a bad person just because of one thing or the other. So that's one thing I'm picking from there, and it's a lesson that I've been learning recently. Thanks for sharing all of that with us. If I'm not crying, yeah, I kept watching. Almost. All right. This is from Inspiring. It's often said, that the last born, we last born, we're usually spoiled by our parents. Was that the case for you? And if that was the case, how did you turn that into an advantage for success rather than a disadvantage for failure? If it wasn't, what did your parents do differently to make sure that this particular last born was born? But I don't agree, we are not spoiled.
So, first of all, if I'm spoiled, I won't know. I guess if people have a problem and they know that they have a problem, that would be the beginning of the the healing for their problem. So, but if somebody is spoiled, they will know that they are spoiled. They will just feel entitled. I don't think I'm spoiled. I mean, Victor spoils me, and I'm grateful for that.
Thank you, sir.
I mean, I guess you will have to ask my sisters, my brother, but every one of them, they are very proud of me. Although they are very cautious of, especially if I talk about any man of God. Oh, so I don't think I'm spoiled. My parents growing up, of course, they made sure that you had everything that you needed, but at the same time, they did not condone you misbehaving. I grew up with a father that would take you to Mr. Biggs, but at the same time, my father had a gun. Amen, somebody. Yeah, a pastor with a gun, a missionary. My father was not your regular man of God. He had a gun because he moved us to our hometown when I was 4 or so because of the missionary work that he wanted to do in that local government area, those villages that he wanted to be going to. And we got robbed, I think at least 3 times or something. We were robbed, and so he went and got himself a gun. And I think we were robbed twice, and then he went and got a gun. So the next time they came, he kept shooting in the air, and so they knew, okay, this is a house not to mess with. And so he had a gun and he had a koboko. My dad rarely beats, but the one time my dad will beat you in a year, you can remember that beating for, you know what I mean? My dad, I was so close to him that I used to call him Babadiola, and he liked it. I just shared how we ate in the same place. Even when I started higher education, my dad would not let me spend weekend on campus. He will, by Friday, my father is on campus. Oh yeah, Jola, we are going home. I have to go and spend the weekend with him. I was so close to him that I remember when I was growing up, I used to have dreams and they would come to pass. And I used to dream about him. My dad rarely gets sick, but anytime he gets sick, I would have dreamt about it that, Daddy, you got sick, it was really serious, you died, this, that. And then we'll pray about it, and weeks after, he will get really sick to the point of death, telling us this is where you should bury him. And then the one time that I dreamt that he was sick, he died, but you rose up again, like you came back to life, this is that. And those dreams usually scare me to the point where I wouldn't want to tell him, and he'd be like, "Was it? You had a dream? You have to," until he will get it out of me. And the one time that I dreamt that he resurrected was when he actually died. So I was so close to him, I was not afraid of him because he related with us in a way where, and I was encouraged to express myself. My father will seek my advice. Who am I? I'm the youngest of six. And it's not just me, he will seek all of our advice. He he involved us in decision making. There was nothing like you are a woman in my father's house. You are created in the image of God. So live your life to the fullest. He was everything to me in terms of, my cheerleader. When I told him this is what I wanted to study, he was like, "You will be a great journalist, you will do what you will do." I didn't know anybody that was a journalist in my family history. But he told me that I would do well. So he raised us to be free to express ourselves, to have what we needed, but at the same time, there's koboko if you misbehave. And so there was no room to be spoiled. he wasn't proud. My mom wasn't proud. Where will I find it? So he raised us. You have to treat everybody with respect. You know how I told you he would take us for missionary outreaches and we'll go to villages. We slept on the mat with other people. We bathed in buckets with other people. So we learned to relate with everybody. So he raised us like that. So there was no room to be spoiled.
Thank you for sharing that. So I was cracking my head trying to see what's the definition of being strong, though. As you were speaking, I see that some of that audacity came from, how we kind of raised you. But then if you think about some of the skits that we see, when they talk about last one, it's the last one I say, I'll tell mommy for you. It's the last one I'll be like, you can say anything. And everything. I have some cousins that even at their mom's 60th, I was doing this game of who does this most. And then the first two were so scared. But the last one kept going like, yeah, yeah, what you gonna do? So it feels like the last buzz. Thank you very much. Over to you, Bob.
Awesome, thank you. So we've been talking about family background and early days, the upbringing. So I'm gonna take the last question or get asked Dr. Me the last question on family background and early days. After which we're gonna go into career and faith. We're gonna try to hurry this up since we have a party to start. So we're gonna make it as quick as we can. Dr. Burry, you have been a beneficiary of mentors, sponsors, and father figures. How important is this relationship line, and what do you say to people out there to help mentor and sponsor the less privileged children around?
Yeah, absolutely. No man is self-made. No man is self-made. You're a product of the relationships that God strategically puts in your life. And from what I've shared today, you've already seen that I was in church when a man saw me and decided to pay for my medical education through a medical school. There was a man who paid for my flight to go to Australia and start my life. When I got to Australia, I couldn't find a job. I just walked into the mayor's office, one of in a small town of 600 people, a week before my visa expired. And the man looked at me, and if I was God, and led me there anyway. Sat down with him, and he told me to introduce myself. And of course, after 1 minute, he said I should sit down, and I told him my story. And my story caught him. He was crying. I was like, good. I gave him tissue. That was when Super Story was raining. You know Super Story? All right, okay. So I'm a good storyteller. I have a model called the Neuroscience of Storytelling. So I told him my story, and this man was caught by my story. And I said, have you applied as a doctor? I said, yes, I've applied as a doctor. But he said, I'm inexperienced. I'm from a third world country, and I only have 1 year working experience. I said, but I have an idea. Give me 24 hours. So I went back to where I was squatting, and I brought out, created a job called assistant GP. That job doesn't exist. I created a job assistant GP, and I put under the bracket medical officer in general practice, and I brought up my CV. I developed 10 pages of the job description, reporting structure, everything, and made sure I was qualified because there was no job in that state that I was qualified for. I created a job I was qualified. The next day I went to him, he looked at it, stamped it, called HR. Could not believe it. 1 month before my 3 month storage visa to Australia expired, one week, and they give me a temporary work permit, and the medical board saw this. They're like, we've never seen this before. Come for an interview. And so that man, this man, Gavin Craig, I will never forget him. Do you know that by the time I signed that contract, the first contract he gave me was a $180,000 contract. That was in 2009. You know what I was earning as an intern in youth? I almost died in the office. Then he took me to his car, and then this was a town of 600 people, a mining town, but they needed a doctor so bad. He took me to the house, 5 bedroom house, and he said, "This is going to be your house, no bills, nothing." Then he took me to the garage, Ford Falcon. Ford Falcon is a top, like, very popular car. Ford Falcon V6. I didn't even have a license. Let me tell you, I was crying and I was screaming in my house when the Lord told me, get out of the room, stop crying, go to the mayor's office. I went without an appointment. When I got there, the secretary said, oh, the mayor's about to go out, but let me check. And he led me in. Amazing. Hearing from God.
What with God is
That's how. Do you know that 5 years? I think the story is long. It's in my book. I ended up not taking that job. God used that job to keep me in Australia until the job that was meant for me. Because if I'd gotten that job, I would have been a GP in a small town and I've made a lot of money. But God wanted me to work on the brain. Fast forward 5, 6 years later, I went to the emergency. I was in a clinic and I stepped out to call the next patient and I saw Gavin Treasure. 5 years later, he became my patient. The mayor of that town. And when he came in with his wife, I told her I'm a crier. I started crying. Gabby started crying. Couldn't recognize me. I said, it's like, Joseph, when his brothers did not recognize me.
Yes.
I said, I am me. The guy who had 1 more week left on his visa. That by the time they posted me to Abia State for NYSC, I said, you saved me and you kept me in this country. And he was crying. And that he became my patient. And he's still a good friend. So those are the kind of people I remember, of the people who have blessed me and who have helped me. And those people are important. So quickly, how for those who one of the things I have found, number one, in getting help and in getting mentors is, number one, be genuine. Number two, know how to introduce yourself. In a way that is not in a way that is not sort of in a way that does not involve projecting your self-image. You must be able to introduce yourself in a very simple way so that, because we need people, all right? You must be ready to serve. One of the things I've learned is service. Reverend George Adebo, who is like a father to me, called me today, um, came to Australia, and I heard about it, and I just volunteered to serve, and opted to take him out for Chinese hot pot restaurant, and we just started ministry. He spent those 3.5 hours I spent with him changed our ministry. Poured so much into me, and he said, "You are my son." He texted when yesterday he texted me and said, "Son, how are you?" He scheduled an appointment for me with me, a mentorship appointment. So Pastor Badu knows now. The first day I met him, I bombarded him with 10 questions. The next day, that please, because I want to learn and I'm ready to serve. So I realized that when you are willing to learn and you humble yourself, people will be there to pour into you, they will build you. And finally, you do that to others. I have mentorship groups. Every Thursday, I've not worked full time since 2015. I don't work on Thursdays. I don't do any consulting on Thursdays. I do coaching, and all that. I'm really keen. I've met Mary today. Mary's studying neuroscience next year. And I said, I've given her my number. I said, okay, connect with me. All right, because that's what I do. So every Thursday, if you look at my calendar from morning till night, all over the world, I'm either coaching people, strategy, counseling, pouring out into people, because that's what my fathers pour into me. So the next week Thursday now in the morning, I'll be with Reverend George this evening. In the evening, I'll be with young people from the UK or different, pouring into them as well and being a blessing to them. So that's what that's the answer.
So we celebrate God, on behalf of these two amazing individuals. Can we please celebrate God? Because these are generational gifts that people will pay thousands of dollars to sit with and to learn from. So you both are truly a blessing to us. We should have an interview by now, sorry, interlude by now, but I think since we're trying to get through this Q&A session, we're going to skip the interlude and we'll go straight into the career and faith round of a question. So go ahead, please.
Wow. But to me, I'd have loved to.
All right.
Okay.
Yes, here's the guest so he can take a 1 minute break. Yeah. So, he'll be back shortly. We have this fire here. Stop looking at it.
So do I go ahead with Mrs. Fire's question or hand
um,
that over to you? And then when Dr. Lee comes.
why don't we wait for Dr. Lee? But in the meantime, does anyone have a quick question for Ms. Fire that she can answer in 1 minute?
Right. Ask her.
Ask her and share with you. At least one question. Please.
Yes.
So we use that to buy time because I believe.
She's here today. Ask. Like Pastor will say, don't go to Pastor's office tomorrow and say, please, can you help me reach Mrs. Fire? She's here today.
Hi, ma'am. Nice to meet you right outside. My question is, what's your strategy for not losing yourself in the sauce and keeping God at the center of your dreams? I think get everything in the what? What's your strategy for not losing yourself in the sauce? In the Do you mean sauce like SAUCE, like yes, the yes, like sauce is like it's a hustle and bustle and everything. What's your strategy for losing yourself in there and keeping God at the center of your dreams? SOURE. No, no, no. Sauce. As in sauce, as in stew. The stew. Like, is that Gen Z? No, success sauce. Like, say Gen Z. Gen Z. I'm trying to steal it. I'm, I'm trying to think of how to answer your question. I don't think I've ever seen myself in a sauce, in the, in the sauce. So I don't want to say that I was never lost. So it's hard. So I've never been lost in the sauce. And the reason is I just told you my life story. You know, growing up, seeing both worlds. Um, I'm well grounded in the way I was raised. That's why when I started doing my show, I wanted to be myself. It goes against everything that you were taught in journalism school. I speak Yoruba in my because you know that I grew up speaking Yoruba. I don't see anything wrong in speaking, but it's my language. If I can learn your language as American, you should also put some respect on my language as well. I try to put in everything that I am into what I do. So I think being raised to be authentic, to keep it real, it goes with you in whatever it is that you're doing. And besides being grounded by my parents, I married the most amazing man ever. Extremely humble, extremely smart, but very, very humble. Like Pastor he was saying this morning how his wife can tell who wore what, who that is Victor for you. He has surveyed this whole room tonight. He has mental notes of everybody, but he won't say a word until you get to know him, and then you're like, you can't stop talking. Yeah, I think he's really loud, but if I do something that is maybe hinting towards being out of line, that's my mother, by the way, Dr. Lover, oh, he would be like, Ololufe, maybe you shouldn't say it like this, it will come off as if you are. He's beyond amazing. So it keeps me grounded. If when I'm not grounded myself, it keeps me grounded. So I think we should give all thanks to Victor. Thank you, sir. Take your flowers. Let's not be zero. Okay, so Dr. Nee, we're waiting, and the next question is for you, sir. Why is medicine a choice of career for you? I think you already spoke about this. And what's your advice to young people considering medicine as a career path?
Well, I chose medicine because of my heart for healthcare. As I said to you, um, for me, work is ministry. In fact, the first assignment God gave man was not worship, it was work. And I see that as, what I do as a calling. It's just something that was in my heart. So as I said, I went to Yaba College of Technology, studied computer science. I had a distinction in a lot of program, stuff like I was very good in math, advanced math, coding, Fortran, all the C++ languages, what is the rest? Like there's something about that, yeah. So, but to sit in front of a computer and just type code did not give me satisfaction. I just knew that I needed to be in front of people. I needed to be interacting with people. So I responded to that, and I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. I read Ben Carson's book, and I wanted to operate on brains. But when I was doing my internship, I collapsed twice in theater when arterial, I saw arterial blood. That was different, like, because we're operating, I was assisting, and I saw blood. Like, man, it caught me. I just felt dizzy and I passed out. So when it happened the second time, I thought, I would just be a physician rather than a surgeon. And I'm happy that I did that. So I enjoy what I do. So yeah, in terms of most of the people who are here, from an African background, I see this. I lecture in the University of New South Wales. I'm a senior lecturer in the university as well in Australia, and half of our university medical school are Asians, Chinese, Indians. I don't know what the experience here in America is, but a lot of our kids do not fancy the medical sciences. Um, and I have to be an advocate for medicine. I'm so sorry. I know when we use examples, you must be a doctor. Those are the kind of examples we use. When we're trying to preach and you must, as if being a doctor is a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. I can move my bag, and a lot of people have been saying I should move to Houston. I can move to Houston this year, and I would start working this year. All right. So it's one of those jobs that are recession proof. It's a profession that doesn't matter. So I will encourage as many young people here. If you've got a passion for people, you've got aptitude in sciences, and you like to look after people, to pursue a degree. And for those of us who are parents, we should encourage our children to pursue careers in the medical sciences. It's rewarding. It helps to build capacity. They're well paid. In Australia, the top 20 professions are doctors. Even if you take all the CEOs, you average them together from the tax office. So you're well paid. It's a fulfilling career. Have I said enough about medicine?
Yes, you have. You sold
Yeah,
it to us.
I enjoy it and I would encourage anyone. So when I see young people who are really keen to pursue that career, I'm always happy to mentor, assist them to thrive in it.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I don't know whether to call you doctor or pastor. Both sound very soothing to the ears. Brother, no, not brother, me. All right, so Mrs. Fire, why is journalism a choice for you, and what will you say to a young person considering a career in journalism?
So I wouldn't really say that I chose to be a journalist. It's just what is close to what I wanted to do. When I was young, people used to tell me that I can talk a lot, I should be a lawyer. And my first sister is a lawyer actually. But I used to like to present, to tell stories, and so when I wanted to study mass comm in Nigeria, I thought I would study either mass comm or law. You know how the Nigerian system is. You don't always get to study what you want to study in Nigeria. In fact, more than half of the students at so many of the public Nigerian universities are just studying what they gave them. They gave me linguistics. What was I supposed to do with that? And you have millions of students studying for 4 years, studying what they were given, not something that they want or that they had passion for. And it's still the case till today at so many of the universities. So they give me linguistics, and even that linguistics is like, oh, more, because at least you have admission. Me, I'm still trying jam. Me, I'm still. So there I was studying linguistics day and night. And then the Lord said, it was my dad that never gave up on, me and my brother studying here. Because for 3 years, they denied us American visa because of 9/11. 9/11 was the year we were supposed to, 2011 was when we were supposed to come. Sorry, 2001. 2000 was when I finished secondary school. So it was since that 2000, I was supposed to resume that fall, and I didn't get a visa until 2003. So me, I'd given up, but my father insisted. And one last time, so 2 years every year, we would drive to Lagos 4 hours to go to the embassy to get to know and come back home. And so by that last time, I told my dad, I'm like, I have admission at, I'm fine. And it's like, no, we have to go. And I was really sick. I still remember. But my dad insisted that we go, which meant we have to sleep overnight to be at the embassy by 5 a.m. And then it was the only time that I did not say anything at the interview. They called my brother first. They talked to him and he said, I'm going with my sister. There she is. They were like, okay, come. And they're like, your visa is approved. Come back on Monday. Sorry, come back to pick up because there's an error in your name. That's me. There was an error in my name in the IELTS, I-20 for international students. So they said, request for another one and come back. And so the way God did it, He made me know upfront that it has nothing to do with you because I didn't even say anything. So it was God that did it. And so when I now got to America, Olivet College, that's my schoolmate right there, Kat. We went to college together. um, and they now said to me, oh, so you have the next 2 years to decide what your major would be. You can try different things, and hopefully by the end of 2 years, you would have known what you like and what you want to study. And I look at them like, you mean in this same world, there's a place where you decide after you have been granted admission, you decide what you want to study, and you can even say, you know what, I'm not feeling this one again. I want to switch to medicine, things like that. I could not believe it. I guess that was the beginning of the rebellion in me. That why is it that in my country there are millions of young people like myself who are forced to study something that they have no passion for, and then they end up teaching. Some of them end up teaching that thing. And I was like, no, 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 this is not right. This is injustice. And I'm sorry, my father was all about injustice, even though he was a pastor. He would speak up when. So that was the beginning of the rebellion in me. But I decided to do. I said to them right there and there. I said I want to do journalism and I want to do mass comm. They said, okay, we don't have a TV station. I said I want to go into broadcasting. They said we don't have a TV station, but you can take a course off campus. There's a place where you can learn. They arranged that for me. They arranged for internship for me at a regular TV station. And then for my final project, I worked on our first TV studio. And they said I can present it to the school president and the head of department. I said to myself, school president will be in a room and I'm presenting to him because I never saw any of our VCs when I was in Nigeria. They did not know who I was, they did not know I existed. In fact, the next day I got on campus in Olivet, the school president was jogging early in the morning and he stopped, he introduced himself. He said, hi, I'm from Nigeria. Hi, I'm so, I'm the school president. I'm Don. My name is Don, I'm the school president. And I was just standing there, I didn't know how to answer him. People was like, how is these people real? And all the professors, they will introduce themselves and so on. So I decided to do journalism because it's what's in line with what I wanted to do in terms of broadcasting. But you will notice that even the journalism, I'm not doing it the way the journalist operates now. So I want to say I've never liked the idea of being in a box, like being put in a box. The journalism, I put in my own flavor. They told us not to ever put in our opinion. I put in my sauce. Yes. I say my opinion. But that doesn't mean tomorrow, if you hear me singing tomorrow night and I say, now I want to sing, right, and I'm combining everything. So I don't like being put in the box. That's what I'm doing right now. That's what I believe God wants me to do right now. And that's why I decided to do it because it's what is close to what I wanted to do in terms of broadcasting.
Thank you very much. Let's put our hands together. Okay. So we're running out of time, and I know some of us, a lot of us are hungry, and we're going to go to eat. But before we do that, I'd like to ask Dr. Nee one more question, one last question. During the first session today in the morning, you talked about, again, sharing your personal experience. You're very good storyteller. That's what I do at work as well, so I can relate. You talked about how you use your work, your circular job as a doctor, to reach out to patients, and then you end up sharing Christ with them, just like she ended up sharing Christ with someone that went to Roma. So, the question now is, how has your faith helped with your career and your calling?
Uh, well, it has helped a lot because I know that the greatest thing in my life is the fact that I know Jesus. I was 14 when I came to know the Lord in an old Anglican church, and that is the most important thing to me. Jesus. And it doesn't matter what I've achieved, PhD, all of those things, nothing more. So I know that my life and every expression of my life, whether it's at the clinic, whether it's in the boardroom, or whether it's at home, must be an expression. Jesus must find an expression through my career. And I'm privileged that I see people who are vulnerable. In Australia, for example, there are laws that against proselyting or like preaching. For example, in most of our hospitals, you're not allowed to preach by law. So most of this happen in my own private practice, where I can. But in the public hospitals, they frown on it because it's an unequal relationship. For example, I cannot date my patient. If you ask the patient out, you're probably going to get yes 99% of the time because it's just there's an imbalance there in power. Um, and so they frown at that. But that doesn't mean there are no opportunities to sort of reach out. I had a patient the other day, a month ago. I came out to the waiting room and she was watching our church service on YouTube. This is a white lady, like she was just watching, she had Googled me and somehow it came up to YouTube and she saw me preaching. I was preaching. And I was actually, that was the time for Sunday school dealing with depression. Depression, I'm not sure whether you guys have that depression in the church, but I brought it to the main sense and I actually thought about depression among Christians. And so she was reading that. So my faith has allowed me to be able to do that. But let me finish up with this story, and after this you want to ask me anything again, please. And this story would illustrate the other aspect of learning, because what my faith has done to me has also shown growth. All right. I run a rural clinic in a rural town. It's about 3 hours or 2.5 hours away from Sydney for farmers. And they don't have specialists in that town, so they wait sometimes 6 months, 7 months, all right, for a specialist. So I had a full 2 days. I go there Thursday, stay in a hotel Friday. Friday, I was supposed to be traveling back to Sydney for Bible study. We call it Digging Deep. And I was teaching Digging Deep that Friday. But my last patient, usually my last patient around 4 o'clock, is a follow-up, a review, not a new patient, because follow-ups are easy. With new patients are hard, harder because you have to take a history and it takes a longer time. So the will this woman, a new patient, at 4:30. I've been there for 2 days, tired, hungry, I've not eaten all day. So I just wanted to rush things up. I know these old white people, they like to tell stories. So they were ready. She was about to talk and everything. So I didn't even take notes. I said, just keep talking. And I was touching, examining her and everything. And then within 15 minutes, I was interrupting, trying to get everything because I knew I had to still drive 2.5 hours and I was teaching Bible study. Finished up everything, gave her a plan, and I left. I went home, taught Bible study that day, felt I had done a lot of great things. The following week, a week later, I got to my office and I saw a letter, a handwritten note, very clean handwriting. And I opened the letter on a Monday, like a week after, and it was the husband of this woman who had written me. And in writing me, he expressed the fact that they had been waiting 6 months to see me, and that they had been looking forward to seeing me. They had heard so much about me, and that I only spent like 10, 15 minutes with them. And how disappointed they were. They knew that I was in a rush, but that they were let down. That weekend she got sick, and they had to move her to Sydney to the bigger hospital. And in fact, my teaching hospital was where she was admitted under someone else. And he said, I know you're very brilliant and you're very smart and you're this and you're that, all right, but we didn't get to see the best of you. And and it wasn't rude, but that really, I'm telling you the truth, that really touched me and that humbled me. And God used that to teach me a big lesson that sometimes it's not about how smart you are, it's not about how gifted you are, but that you really need to connect with people and make a difference. So I took that letter and I went to look for her in the world. There were no balloons, There were no greeting cards, no flowers. This woman was just by herself there. I knelt by her and she recognized me. And I said, I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm sorry that you waited 6 months to see me, but I only give you 10, 15 minutes. And I didn't, help you to the court because I was in a rush. And guess what? That changed my career. All right. And I had to be humble enough because Spirit of God told me to actually go. Going back there, I realized it was a moment of growth for me in the way I reached out to people. It changed my attitude. It changed our philosophy. And from that day, the growth that has occurred in our business, all right, from that, so that we're now treating patients in a different way, is very powerful. So my faith has been a big blessing in so many different ways. I just thought I'd use that to illustrate that. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Have you been blessed this evening? Let's celebrate God one more time on behalf of this true amazing award in a lifetime gift to our generation. At this point, we'd like to, have us go outside to start eating. I know we're hungry, but before we do that, we'd like to have our dear pastor and then be able to just pray on the refreshment and the food before we head out to eat.
Amen. Yeah. Uh, let's pray. Father, we thank you, O God, for the session that we've had so far. Thank you, God, for the words that we've heard. As we go to eat, Lord, please bless what we're about to take, that will nourish our bodies in Jesus' name.
Amen. So, in really no particular order, I would like the pastors to go first. And then we'll have a special guest also follow suit. Then each table will go have the food.
All right, so we're gonna have the pastor take music, some light music on fire. We'll just have a picture taken, and then we'll start with the pastor's table. So,